everyone. Welcome to the third episode of the Silent Podcast. I'm Christina Lachelle.
And I'm Ijeoma and
And we are excited to tell you about today's conversation. It was very, very near and dear to my heart because we had an opportunity to sit down with my sister Desiree and my nephew Elijah. So it was an awesome episode. But before we get into that, we have just a couple of things to talk to you about. First of all, I want to talk to you about Ijeoma's hair.
I don't know why Christina always wants to bring up my hair every episode.
So last episode, we had this really big afro, curly afro, beautiful. You saw it in the YouTube video if you saw our last episode. Today, we have these locks that are coming down to a little bit lower than shoulder length, and they are just
Christina.
Ijeoma wants to take them out, but I think you got at least 2 more good weeks with them. So
they'll probably be out by the next episode. Who knows?
And then we get to talk about Ijeoma's podcast here next month.
So we'll see. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed today's episode. Getting to get a little bit more in depth and learn more about Christina Lachelle through the eyes of her sister and her nephew and why she is the woman that she is today. Just seeing the strength that her sister has as she's had her battle with sickle cell, and then also hearing about Christina's mother and how she's been very instrumental in Desiree's sickle cell journey. So it was really a good conversation, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed hearing Elijah talk about how much his love for his mother and seeing her issues and how that helped him become the man that he is today. So it was a good episode. So our voice of truth for today really ties into the topic of what we talked about, which is our title, A Mother's Love. And so our voice of truth for today is: behind all your stories is always your mother's story, because hers is where yours begins. So yeah, this quote really speaks a lot of truth in terms of Desiree's story as she spoke about her life growing up, having her mother there, your mother as well, Christina, and then just being a mother, and so how all of that stuff fit and tied together. So I'm really excited for y'all to hear today's episode.
Yeah, indeed. I think A Mother's Love is perfect because I definitely see, just even in our conversation, the different generations of a mother's love and the impact that has had on my sister, has had on my nephew, has had on me. So really good conversation today.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get into the podcast.
Yep, let's do it.
And here's a quick message from our sponsor.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to be able to introduce you to my sister, Desiree Michelle Scott. Say hi, Desiree.
Hi, how are you?
So Desiree is my older sister by a few years, and she is my fashion expert. She's the one who told me that this necklace was the one I needed to be wearing today. Desiree is very passionate about women's rights and being an advocate for the voices of those who are silenced, which is why she is the perfect person to have on today's podcast. Additionally, some things you don't know about Desiree is that she was a childhood actress, and I had to say it. She was on the Cosby Show.
I didn't know that.
2 commercials, yep. And she was in a Broadway musical in her teenage years. So she is, yes, she is an actress. And with all of that said, one of the things I'm sure that she is proudest of beyond her acting career is her son, Elijah. And so that's one of my favorite things about Desiree is her being a mom. So I would like to introduce everyone to my sister, Desiree. Again.
Hey, Desiree.
Hi, so good to be here today, guys. Very excited for what's in store. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Ijeoma, so you want to get us started?
Oh, yeah. So, Desiree, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. We really appreciate you, and we're so excited to get this conversation going. But before we start, I wanted to ask you if you could describe your sickle cell journey in one word, what word would that be?
Wow, one word, one word. So I'd probably say resilience, but that is more me describing how I deal with my sickle cell journey versus the journey itself.
Okay, and so if you would say the journey itself, what word would you use?
Um, Turbulent.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, so now that's interesting. Now get us into where we want to start and go from. So I know that Christina mentioned that you were a mother. So how do you feel that motherhood has affected your journey, and how would you say it's been being a mother to a child, to a son, as you live your life with sickle cell?
So, interesting how, you know, the intersectionality of like motherhood and
Yeah.
terminal illness kind of really just strengthen you as an individual. And for me, um, I say motherhood has given me, um, and my son in particular, has given me a strong will to live, a
Mm,
new will to live. So, there have been points during my journey where, I have faced death
mm,
and not being ready to let him go and family go, and just knowing that my time is not up.
mm,
God, you didn't tell me that this is it. I know I have to be here to continue on, and he's not ready to be motherless right now. you know we're thankfully we're blessed to have an amazing family and support circle and system for him.
mhm.
But when I get to those places, just that will that is still in me, even when everything else is failing me,
Mm,
keeps me going.
because you're resilient. Yeah, there
Wow.
we go. So with that, how old is your son now?
He's 18.
Oh, wow. So
Mm-hmm.
he's heading off to college or?
Yes. So he actually just graduated high school this year. So class of 2020 grad,
Whoop.
quarantine grad. And yeah, whoop whoop. And he is going to be attending Clark Atlanta University. Classes start on Wednesday, 100% remotely. Thank
Okay. So
God.
he'll still be able to be with you in New York, or he's going to go to Atlanta?
He'll be home for the fall semester at least.
How does that make you feel?
Grateful. I mean, simply because, it's as a mother, we provide our children with all of these tools to be the best versions of themselves, and not every time do you feel that they are fully equipped and that things are really soaking in, but then sometimes you have those moments where it's like he's going to be just fine. And I had one of those moments earlier, maybe last week it was, in fact. And but prior to that, like just a few days prior to that, I was just kind of, or weeks in fact, Clark Atlanta University had decided that they were going to have the students on, and they were going to do a combination of blended learning.
Mhm.
So 2 days here, take a break, and then remain in classes. They were only letting freshmen and sophomores on campus. And, so I was like, okay, so we're going to Atlanta. And then COVID started spiking and we were still going to Atlanta. And I was not comfortable with it, but I did not want to step in his way, as he is, beginning to start adulting and, spread his wings. And I didn't want to be that block. And so I prayed about it, and thankfully, and the following week, it was less than a full week, I got the announcement, we all got the announcement that they were going to be doing 100% remote. So I'm definitely grateful that he does not have to be down there right now during this spike, and really increase his risk. And then, of course, our risk if he would be coming home. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
And she's glad that she gets to stay with her baby a little bit longer.
I mean, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah. But no, that's always been the thing. So like you said, it's been 18 years. So it's like you've had this time to experience your time with your son. And I know that you've had your moments with your battle with sickle cell throughout these 18 years. One of the things that I always wonder about, because I don't have any kids, right? My nieces and my nephew, they're my children. Somebody else just gave birth to them, but that's another story. But that's how much I love them. But no, that's something that's always concerned me, or that I've always worried about with having sickle cell, is when it gets to that point of childbirth, right? And how will that affect me? So that's something that sits in the back of my mind when I think about getting ready to have children, because I do eventually want children of my own. But I wonder in terms of, because you know how it is having a pain crisis, and you know how people talk about the pain of giving birth and having a child. So let's say if you couple that with a sickle cell crisis and childbirth at the same time, I'm like, Lord, please don't let that be my story. But just wanted to know, how was it for you giving birth, having sickle cell, and then just when you found out that you were pregnant, and that you were about to have a child, how did that affect your journey through your pregnancy and then ultimately to giving birth?
Okay,
really good question, Ijeoma, because this is such an interesting story.
Yeah, actually. So I had an easy breezy, beautiful pregnancy.
Oh, that's awesome. So you didn't have any crisis during your pregnancy?
I didn't have any crises during my pregnancy.
Right.
In fact, I didn't know I was pregnant until I was 5 months pregnant.
Yeah, she was in denial. Is what I didn't know.
Apparently.
So until you started getting a little bump, that's when you realized you were pregnant.
I mean, like, my breasts started getting a little fuller. My stomach has always been a little pudgy, and everyone else started asking me if I was pregnant. And so I'm like, no. I also was still getting my period. So, so I actually didn't know. But when I found out, I was, how far was I, Christina? 18 weeks? I think I was 18 weeks. And I ended up being able to get a sonogram to tell the sex, like just, at the next visit.
To get a sonogram to tell the sex, you have to be like 5 months pregnant.
Right. So
she calls me to come with her to the doctor, and outside of the doctor's office, then she tells me that she's pregnant. And that we were going to go to a sonogram at 5 months.
So how did you react, Christina?
The funny thing is, I had a dream about my nephew before he was born. And I remember, because I told my friend Patty, I was like, I had this dream about this boy. He had the most beautiful eyes. And so when she told me, I probably seemed calm, right, Desiree?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it's a boy.
She told me it was a boy. She told me about her
Okay.
dream. She told me about his big, beautiful eyes and his curly hair. And that, you know, yeah,
Oh wow.
she
So
basically saw my son.
oh wow.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you had a fairly easy pregnancy, clearly, because you didn't know you were pregnant. So
Right. So, you know, I told my mom when, you know, what, it was Christmas. I was about 6 months at the time. And
Oh,
then
that's very close to
right
Christmas.
after I told my mother, first off, my mother was like, duh. And I was like, what? You know, um, right after, it was like, you know, Elijah was waiting for me to tell my mother before he just started showing out. That's when I started looking pregnant.
Mhm.
That's when he just like grew like crazy. He started stretching out and, you know, kicking me there and poking me there and punching me here. And that's when I was pregnant for real, for real. But yeah, so that process was all beautiful. I gave birth to him at 37 weeks. I had actually gone out to a family member's in Jersey just to kind of say what's up to my doctor and put me on bed rest. So I went to Jersey while I was supposed to be on bed rest to say what's up to all my people who I hadn't seen in a while, and you know, and just kind of get some rest and relax with godparents out there, right? So we were you with me, Christina?
No.
Okay. So when I went there, it was the same night that I got there, that I actually went into labor, but I didn't realize that I was in labor. I just, you know, I woke up my god sis and I was like, so I feel something. I don't think that I'm in labor because it doesn't feel like that, like, you know, what I'm thinking it contraction should feel like, but it feels weird. So I think I need to go to the hospital. In fact, I think she was probably the one to encourage me to go to the hospital. And we went and they told me that, you know, I was having contractions, and I was in the hospital for a couple days before he was actually born, but they ended up having to give me a C-section because I was not feeling what I should have been feeling. So the monitor was saying I was having contractions, and they're like, "Do you feel that?" And most of the time it was a no. And so then they just, I guess they assumed that he was in distress, and so they had to take him. So that was fine. The only thing I don't miss, you know, after I gave birth to him, because of the medication from the C-section, I feel like there was a long period of like those first 2 days after that were just a blur. They kept me a little bit longer, I guess, than usual, just to monitor my sickle cell. But I was fine. When Elijah was about 2 weeks old, though, I did have, maybe it was 2 months, about 2 weeks or 2 months early. Shortly after, I did have a crisis and um, was hospitalized for that. So, and that was a serious ICU intubation hospitalization.
oh wow.
So,
So how would you, I guess, compare the pain of childbirth versus you having your sickle cell crisis and your sickle cell pain?
my tolerance level is, you know, extremely high, as you know, because of sickle cell disease. So the only thing that I got since childbirth was really bad heartburn.
Mm.
And that is a lot of times the heartburn will really knock me out more. And to this day, it has gotten worse, but I never had it before him, before I was pregnant. So, but sometimes that'll knock me out faster than sickle cell pain. But in terms of giving birth, it was literally painless. During the surgery, they ended up having to put me to sleep because I was feeling too much pressure. You know, they said it should only feel like pressure. I said, I think that's a little bit more than pressure. So they ended up having to put me to sleep, so I didn't really feel much pain. So, yeah.
So Christina, just because I want to see in terms of this dynamic. So are you the only person in your family with sickle cell?
I am the only person with sickle cell disease. So I my sister has the trait, my son has the trait, my mother tested negative for the trait, as did Christina.
Don't both parents have to have the trait for the child to get sickle cell?
This is why it's
technically, but that was part of what made our situation, or mine in particular, so unique and complex at the same time, because that wasn't the case, and that wasn't how everyone tested at first. My aunt has the trait.
And our cousin does too. I don't know if we're saying names.
Yeah. So, and our cousin does as well. I have a sister on my father's side who I believe has the trait as well. So
how has that been for you, being the one growing up in your family with sickle cell? And then Christina, I'll piggyback on you as from the perspective of you just having the trait and then seeing your sister growing up. But how has that been for you, knowing that you're the one who ended up with sickle cell disease?
So sometimes, you know, it's like, why me? You know, sometimes I don't know, it's definitely been my cross to bear. It's definitely been that thing. And then sometimes I sit back and I'm like, well, I guess if I didn't have sickle cell, I probably would have done that. I probably would have been this. And they're not all positive things that I'm thinking that I would do. So, you know, it kind of keeps me grounded as well. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of have, you know, we've been raised in a deep Christian family, you know, so I try not to really complain about things, but then of course there's times when I'm like, okay, so like, am I Harriet Tubman and this my spell? Like, you're trying to talk to me because I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing something. What are you trying to say to me, Jesus? You don't have to knock me out in the hospital for 2 weeks to talk to me. Like, I'm here, Lord Jesus, I'm here. What do you want from me? I will do it. I surrender.
Yeah.
But no, you know, like, I have those moments. It's like,
yeah. No,
I
definitely feel you, because I actually, within my family, it's 3 of us that have sickle cell: me, my twin brother, and then my younger sister. But my younger brother, he just has the trait. So the fact, like the dynamic in terms of the whole concept of having sickle cell, even with having more than just one family member with it, you still have those moments of like, God, why me? But then taking it to the perspective of, I guess, why not me? Like, God saw me to be that person, to be strong. And how can I use this moment or use this situation in order to help motivate and inspire somebody else, instead of taking it as my crutch or taking it as a negative thing? What are some things that I can try to do in order to better the situation? But just even going back, because I want to come back to Christina, from the perspective of having sickle cell. I know me, again, going back to not having any children, one of the things that I worry about is having a child that has sickle cell, because of the fact that I grew up and I know what it felt like to have to go through being in the hospital, having these crises, even though God blessed me to the fact that I'm thankful that I don't get as many crises as most people with sickle cell. So I've been blessed from that perspective. Like normally in my life, there's been times I've gone years without having a crisis. It might be a little one in like my finger or something like that. To where it's been, yeah, I mean, I've gone a year, but most recently it's been a little bit more. It's been like 3-4 within a year to where I ended up being hospitalized. But I wonder from that perspective of a mother and knowing how seeing my mom in pain and seeing my mom seeing me in pain, and then seeing her in pain because I'm in pain, just in terms of her being hurt and wanting to be there for me. And her really not being able to do anything because it's one of those things. It's like you have to sit and just wait for the pain to pass. You can't really do anything about it except for take the pain medicine, do the things that you need to do until it finally passes through. So I worry about that, right? So I know that affects me when it comes to like dating stuff, because I don't want to date somebody that may have the trait and then it ends up becoming something more, and then I have to worry about the fact of having a child that may have sickle cell as well. So while you were pregnant, was that something that you were ever concerned about, Elijah having sickle cell as well? Did that ever cross your mind?
Absolutely. So actually took a test from his father to see, they tested something in his blood to be able to determine whether or not Elijah was going to be able to have the trait or disease. But in order for us to determine whether or not Elijah would actually have it, they needed to do the the electrophoresis. I think I'm saying that correctly. The long needle that
I remember.
goes, and I wasn't having that, so I just kind of took. Yeah, I mean, it was too close. Like we're already at like 7 months at the time, and it's not like I'm not gonna have the baby.
Yeah.
So I just I decided to just wait, and thankfully he does have the trait.
Basically, they took a test that said that he wasn't going to have the trait, that he didn't have the trait.
No. Well, that was that, right? But the antibody test was something different. It was basically because I was at risk even further. So I was at risk even further beyond having a child with sickle cell disease. And so there was something in my blood that basically they wanted to make sure wasn't in his blood as well, so that the baby wouldn't be further compromised. And thankfully it wasn't. So,
okay. That's good. So no, Christina, back to you. So how was it growing up in the house with your sister, being that you have the trait, or at the time you didn't know that you even had the trait, but seeing what she was dealing with and going through, and then also when it transitioned into her becoming a mom, like how was that for you?
Yeah, good question. You asking all the questions today.
Because I want to know, because like I said, eventually I want to be a mother. I want to have children of my own. So it's good to talk to other warriors and see their position and like how their life is. Because I like to see like how people grow and move and overcome, how people are resilient.
Yeah. So there has never been anything easy about seeing my sister in pain. I remember the first crisis that she had, and I must have been 3 or 4 years old. But I remember her being in pain. I remember my mother coming to the bed, and then I remember waking up the next day and her not being there, and me saying, where is Desiree? And learning that she had gone to the hospital with my mom. Like, I remember from the very beginning when she was diagnosed, and all the times that she's been in the hospital. And there's been, even though I'm the younger sibling, there's been sort of a protector in me. I feel like I've always been protective of my sister to make sure that You know, she's doing everything that she can for herself, but also just making sure she's okay. But it's, like I said, there's nothing easy about seeing someone in a state of helplessness and knowing that, you know, I was watching this sickle cell special the other day, and it's literally one letter on the DNA, right? Literally one letter on the DNA that switched. That could have been me, you know? And so it's hard. And so watching my sister is the reason why, like, I'm so cognizant whenever I'm dating someone now of like, oh, you have the trait. Well, it was fun. It was really nice meeting you, and we're gonna just be really good friends. Because I don't want to willingly bring someone else into this world that could possibly have sickle cell, because I know the pain that they could be exposed to. And when my sister told me she was pregnant, I was super excited to be an auntie, and I still am to this day. Hey, Elijah. But I was also really scared, really, really, really scared about, you know, what possible complications could occur as a result of her being pregnant, you know? And thank God, like you said, it was easy breezy, beautiful pregnancy. And I pray, Ijeoma, that's your truth too. When you
receive it in the name of
Jesus. But yeah, it's just it's tough, and it's also, I mean, Elijah's my nephew. Period. Point blank. That's my boo. But you know, I also feel protective of him too, to make sure that he's okay. Because I know that he experiences and sees a lot of what I saw growing up, and it's not easy. It's not easy seeing someone that you love be in pain to a point where you can't help them, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. Just even seeing that dynamic, how it still feeds through. So how you said, Christina, so seeing your sister, because that's the same thing. Like, I have sickle cell too, but then my sister, it's another situation in terms of that protective like nature that I have over her. And I know that sometimes, like growing up, she did get a little bit more crisis than me and my brother. And so it was always a thing of wanting to try to figure out like how I can be there for her and what I can do to try to help. And so it gave me a better understanding of like the types of things that my mother was dealing with and my mother was going through, being that she was caring for 3 different children, 4 children in total, but 3 kids that had sickle cell, right? And so how that could take a toll on her, because, you know, she was a working woman. She was always at work. My mom worked nights. She's an RN. And so being that I have this household and then that I need to take care of, and then also I'm out there trying to provide. My parents are still together, so my dad was there as well. But my mom was the one who was always with us in the hospital, like helping us out and doing that, but then also still needing to go to work and do those things as well. And even to this day, like my brother, when we were growing up in like elementary school, he didn't really go to the hospital. He never really got sick like me and my sister did. But as an adult, he's, you know what I mean, like gotten sick, because, you know, the last podcast that we had where we talked about how he had the stroke and that time he was in the hospital more recently last year. My mom did not leave his side. Like, he's married, has a whole wife and 2 kids, but my mom was there sleeping in the hospital, you know what I mean, trying to be there with him so that she can maintain. So it's like a mother's love is something that lasts forever. And it's everlasting, and it's that endurance that you build. And just like how you said, Desiree, in the beginning, was that the fact of having your son gave you that zeal to live.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have to do this. I have to make it through for him, to make sure that I'm here for him. And so having that push to continue to get to that next level, know that I can make this, I can get through this, because I know that I have somebody depending on me on the other side. So it takes it to another level.
So from what I've seen over, I would say over like the last, since Elijah has been in high school, maybe, so like over the last 4 or 5 years, things have been pretty good. Like, Elijah's been a good kid, and he's really been active in school. But I also remember about the third, fourth, fifth, somewhere between like the second and the fifth grade, it was tough. We had some challenges with Elijah. We all had some growing pains.
Oh yeah.
Tell us a
He
little
is
bit. Tell us a little bit more
Elijah.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Elijah
enlighten me, because I
is,
see y'all are having a moment right now. So let
I
me
mean,
understand what's going on.
yeah, Elijah is his auntie's nephew. Mhm. Yes. He was pretty much just like you were when you were younger, Christina.
Enlighten me.
You know,
Let me, Christina, how
yeah.
you were a troublesome child?
Oh yeah.
He,
Okay, so tell us about some of those moments.
so yeah, the boy. That's what we called him during those days.
Yeah, the boy.
The boy.
He was the boy. I mean, simply because he's the only one. We're a family full of women, pretty much. And unfortunately, we have lost most of our, father figures and fathers and grandfathers and
Godfathers and
godfathers. So, yeah. But so Elijah's the boy. He definitely had a rough patch from, I want to say, kindergarten to about 8th grade. Something clicked instantly in high school. I don't know what it was. I guess it was to be expected from other moms, experience. But it happens. But prior to that, and even in middle school, he started getting a little bit more tamed. But elementary school, it was dailies every day. And if you don't know what a daily is,
No, I don't. I was
basically,
about to say, let me know, like when you're saying that,
right.
like what was going on, like what was happening, and how did that affect you
So,
as a mother?
so he received dailies every day. And
So if you could explain to us what a daily is.
right. So with the daily, basically that is a note from his school stating that his behavior was so bad that they don't want to make any more phone calls. They don't want to make any more calls to me, nor did I want to receive any more phone calls from the school. So they just send in a daily form. It's basically a form that states his behavior. They use happy faces, sad faces, and like the little in between to kind of indicate his performance and his behavior for the day. And then, of course, listed his homework and blah, blah, blah. And so my responsibility was to sign it every night to make sure that I acknowledged it. And yeah, so this was probably for about first, second, and third grade.
and his
Third grade,
reputation preceded him.
right, exactly.
When you say what do you mean, his
The
reputation?
teachers knew about Elijah that were in other grades that would be receiving him.
Oh, wow.
Right. And unfortunately so, because, it was almost as if he wasn't given a fair chance at, to be very honest. But, so, it's not that he wasn't doing work. He was returning and doing all of his homework. He was doing all of his classwork, and he would just be talking too much, basically. So he would talk too much. He would be flicking pencils, tripping kids as they pass by. Like, he's the first one finished with the test, and then he'll cause trouble. Like, so it was just that story for about a good solid 5 years of elementary school. He graduated this year, and he told me, he said, I bet my third grade teacher didn't think that this day would happen. You know what I mean? Like, they really gave him like no credit. But one teacher challenged him a bit and allowed him to, kind of take on more of a leadership role in the classroom, a little bit more responsibility, and that really helped him. It really helped to kind of like stabilize his behavior, at least in that class. And then he also became one of like the safety guards for the lower grades, and that too helped to kind of really give him like that responsibility. Really helped to give him a sense of ownership to it and really be more accountable to his own behavior. And so but yeah, I had always been involved as well, even since elementary school. That didn't change anything. The one thing that I will say is that I always had to let him know that your mama can be that crazy mama. So like, I always had to kind of keep him on edge with discipline, and because he really did not behave the way that he behaved in school with me. And to the point almost where the first few calls, I didn't even believe it. I'm like, you guys, you must be talking about the other Black boy. and it was literally like one day that my mother was watching him, and she called me, and he is acting a fool in the background. And I'm like, what is going on? And so she started telling me this. And I'm like, so, children are master manipulators. They know who they can get away with what with. And
I know that for a fact with my niece. And my nephew. So they know what they can get away with and what they can't, with who and who not.
Exactly. And so, and he definitely took full advantage of that, as did most of the kids in his class. So, and that's the story of especially our Black boys.
That's a really good segue, because I have a memory of Elijah, and I hope it's okay for me to talk about this. And if not, we can cut it out. But I have a memory of Elijah that really I think about often, especially now, and the impact that it may have had on him, and I wonder how he thinks about it. I remember you calling me up one day and saying that Elijah had gotten in trouble in school, and I think he was in the 4th or the 5th grade, and they took him out of school in handcuffs and had brought him in and put him in a police car and brought him down to the police station. And that you were receiving the call on the other end of that. So you hadn't been informed about his misbehavior in school. You hadn't been informed when he was being arrested in the school. But you got the call when he got to the police station. Tell us a little bit more about that, and also like, what is that? How do you deal with that as a mother raising a Black boy? And like, do you ever think about that situation too, when we're looking at all of these things that are coming out now, or that have been coming out, but the Ahmaud Arbery's or the George Floyd's, like what? Well, I'll let you answer.
Yeah. The answer to your question, do I think about that now? I think about it all the time. I actually am a co-lead for my chapter with Mom United, Moms of Black Boys United, for this very reason. Although I haven't actually shared it with many of the other mothers, almost every mom has experienced their Black son being arrested as a child.
Wow.
For BS. Insane. So I hadn't shared my experience with it simply because I wasn't ready to.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I mean, there were other reasons as well, but I just, you know, even when I hear other people talk about it, their shared experience, I just, you know, I get to that place where it's like, I feel you 100%, but I just haven't articulated mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that I'm sharing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to force you into it.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
So
yeah,
important.
this was 5th grade, and thankfully, you know, as an after effect, everything has been completely erased from his record, but they had him with a strangulation felony C charge.
Wow.
Arrested at 11 years old for he was playing with a girl. I think they were on a class trip, and they had come back from the trip. They had gotten off the bus, and he was playing with her, and I think he had put his sweater around her or something, and you know, they were playfully playing, and unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure how things went down, but she, I think a teacher saw it and kind of, you know, she was, I guess the little girl was feeling, you know, that she didn't want to be wrapped in his sweater or something. I'm not really sure exactly how that went down. All I know is our end of it. For me, it was the moment where I lost trust with also the New York City Department of Education, because they allowed my son to be taken in handcuffs from the school, as Christina said, without notifying his parents until after he was already in the precinct. That's when I received notification of what was going on. So, you know, this was just it, you know, it was the constant problem that we have right now with the DOE and the police. So it's like the police department is integrated into the school systems, which is also integrated with the juvenile delinquent jail system, and it's literally the manifestation of the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just it leaves our sons in a place where if they don't have someone or a parent like me, and you know, and I was able to go down there with his godfather at the time, and thankfully, you know, thankfully I didn't have to go by myself.
When they see us.
Right. But you know what I mean? It's like if you don't have someone to advocate for you, though, you can easily get lost in the system. Like, you know, did they fingerprint him? Did they ask him questions? Of course they did all that stuff illegally.
Yeah.
Because none of us were there, nor did we consent, and he's 11 years old. Yeah. So anyway, the charges, again, they were dropped and expunged because the girl had, I guess, went home and told her father or something, you know, after all this, and then the family is the one who actually pressed the charges. But then they never followed up on anything. So, you know, we had to go into all these meetings and sessions and wait time out and wait 3 months for them to follow up with this or not. and then wait for them to do this, and they never did anything. So, you know, everything just kind of, you know, expunged itself. But just really, thank God, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, and yeah, and of course, the little girl was a white girl.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, you know, if you want to really kind of get to the meat of what this was all about, right? On racist Staten Island, yeah. So, but that's a whole separate story. But yeah, so yes, the impact that that has had on Elijah's life, I know that that is part of his passion for what he does now. He is president of the NAACP Youth Council out here. He is interested in studying more about criminal justice, although he is majoring currently in business, but he's probably going to either dual major or possibly even change it, because he definitely holds a strong passion for that. He definitely sees things as they are, as much as I've tried to kind of, you know, my mother, our mother, has always been she is one of those who definitely would encourage us to not really see color, or not really to acknowledge the differences, but to not be discouraged by them. So, you know, she talks about how she almost married, you know, someone
Asian guy.
right. And, you know, so she always jokes about those things. And so she's always kind of encouraged us to be open with race and relationships and friendships. We grew up in the melting pot of Teaneck, New Jersey, like, you know, the melting pot, you know. So I kind of tried to really impart that on Elijah growing up, especially so that he didn't have any forced biases from me about how
what happened with him.
Right. And but then and then there are experiences like this that kind of force you to see things for what they are, regardless. So
So how do you feel, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Elijah, just to see, as a son of a mother with sickle cell, how like that's affected him growing up, going through like from his youth till now. But how was it having to deal with that I mean, with those types of situations, or with that situation, and just your son growing as you're also having to deal with your health at the same time? How was that for you?
So, like you, I have been blessed to not really have to deal with as many crises as most. However, in the last few years, they have become more frequent. And in the last 2 years in particular, they started out like twice a year, and then they have, this past year, since November, I had been hospitalized 5 times. So, which is way more than normal. When I was younger, I was hospitalized once every 4 or 5 years. So, and that pretty much until Elijah was pretty young. So thankfully he hasn't really had to see me go through crises all the time, and even when I do go into the hospital, he would see me come out, and pain, you know, sickle cell disease is an invisible illness. Like, you know, you see that we're in pain, you know it, you feel it, because we're empathetic people, but at the same time, you can't really see the injury and really know beyond that. So it's one of those things where a lot of people just really don't understand it. But I have been, again, blessed to not have to deal with that so much. And now that he's older, I think that because I've always made him a priority and it's really just the two of us rocking it out, you know, I think that he understands my journey a little bit more now. And, you know, I just make sure to keep him at priority. And then I try to do what I can to make sure that I'm not really, you know, just dying on the couch somewhere. You know, I try to stay busy, and I am probably the queen of doing too much, doing the most. But yeah.
So one thing, Desiree, that I do want to talk about and acknowledge is the constant, the person that we haven't talked about a ton, but the constant that has been there throughout both, you know, your journey as a child and then your journey as a mom, which is mommy, and like how she's shown up for us and for you. You want to talk a little bit more about like how mommy has been there, our mother has been there, and filled in the gaps for you, like especially with your crises and things?
Oh my gosh. So we have like the most amazing mother in the world. I know a lot of people try to say that, but we actually got it. But so yeah, I definitely, I mean, like you said, Christina, she's, you know, she's the constant. She was there during my very first crisis at 7 years old when I was diagnosed. And she's been there for every single one after. So even the ones, while even hospitalizations while I was an adult when she wasn't necessarily around. So my mother, for the first few years of Elijah's life, lived still in out of state, and so I had to move her up because Elijah wanted to go out to Pennsylvania to see her every weekend, and we couldn't do that. And and then, you know, and I needed her here as well. So in fact, it actually started when I had a really, really bad crisis in, I want to say 2005. It was 2005. I was hospitalized for about 3.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Intubated, ICU. I believe it started with an exchange transfusion or a blood transfusion that had gone bad, and I ended up needing an exchange transfusion, and then I was put on life support. I later found out that they had told my family that I wasn't going to make it during that time. And yeah, so my mom came out. That was one of those moments when I started I remember coming out of the coma, I guess we'll call it. I remember coming out of that. I remember being in it as well for at many points. Sometimes I was more alert than not, but I do feel, you know, when I woke up, I didn't realize that it was like 3 whole weeks later. I thought it was like the day after that.
Oh, wow.
Transfusion or something that I had initially went in for. So I definitely lost like 3 weeks of my life then. but yeah, my mom was there. She took care of my son, and she stayed with me about for a couple months after that. And then she actually took my son with her for a year because I needed to go back to work, but I also needed to heal and recover. And I also, needed to be able to do all that. And I didn't have proper childcare in place or anything. So she has been a great help with um, not just being there with me, but for me and for Elijah, and just really, she's been our child care provider, and she even, got herself licensed and became a whole entire daycare and everything,
Aww.
which ended up being just perfect for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I had to at that point bring her back to New York so that she could just be closer and it wouldn't be a back and forth thing. But even when he was older, every time that, I was hospitalized, she was able to take him so that he didn't have to be in the hospital with me. So, her taking him kind of also shielded him from really seeing a lot of me being hospitalized, even though it wasn't as often. It was, each hospitalization was still days to weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know.
She's just been a great help, and now even more so because, again, like I mentioned, I have been hospitalized more frequently, and she's there even now when I need her. So yeah, I'm so grateful to have my mother. So grateful that she is able to physically support me, emotionally, spiritually. She's just really been a great support for me throughout my life, but especially with this journey.
That's awesome. And just even going back, that just brings our title, A Mother's Love, and how important that is. And so just tying back to what you talked about in the beginning when we asked you what provide a word that describes your journey through sickle cell, and you told us that your word was resilient, right? And that you feel that it's also been turbulent. And so just seeing how these things kind of come together, right? So it's you knowing, because you've had this person that's depending on you, that needs you, you've been able to get through this turbulent time of your life and have that resilience to be able to persevere and to continue to move forward, knowing that you have somebody there that needs you. And then same thing, I'm sure, with your mother, as you being her child, knowing that, okay, I need to be there for my daughter, right? I need to do everything and anything that I can. And so that whole sense of resilience, even through the turbulent times, even through the things that may be happening, may be going on in our lives, those are the things that keep us, right? And those are the things that help us to be able to share our stories and do those things to be able to help motivate and inspire other people so that they know that you can do this, right? Like, you're resilient. You may go through turbulent times. You may deal with certain things that may take you out. People may feel as though you're not going to make it, but you still make it out to the other side. So we're happy to have you on this show, Desiree. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for opening up to us, because I know there's some things that you weren't ready to talk about, but your sister got it out of you. So we're thankful for you to be so transparent and so open about that. And just hoping that through your words, through the things that you've been able to share within this podcast, that it inspires other mothers that may be dealing, or other women like me who don't have children right now, who are thinking, like, because of their sickle cell, it kind of keeps them wondering, like, is this really for me, right? And so that's been part of your strength through your journey, is your son, right? And so thankful for that, and we're glad to be able to hear what you had to share with us today. So thank you so much,
Yes.
Desiree.
Thank you,
Thank
sister.
you. Thank you.
Ijeoma and I also had an opportunity to connect with my nephew, Elijah.
First of all, how are you? I see
I'm
you
good.
at the beach without me.
Yeah, it's chilling.
Yeah, so we just had an amazing conversation with your mom, Elijah. And so we just wanted to get your perspective and share it with our listeners on how it's been just growing up. And again, congratulations on going to he's going to Clark, Atlanta? On going
Yeah,
to
Clark
Clark,
Atlanta
Atlanta.
University.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes.
thank you.
Yes, yes, sir. Congratulations on that. But we had this amazing conversation with your mom. So we just wanted to get your perspective of growing up with a mother that has sickle cell and how that's impacted your life. And so thank you for taking the time, because I know that you're out on the beach enjoying this last moments of summer since you're about to head to school. Congratulations on your acceptance to Clark Atlanta and starting your first semester as a freshman. So
Thank you,
congratulations
thank you,
to you.
thank you.
So just growing, I know your mom told us that you're 18. Clearly your aunt knows, but I didn't. But your mom told us that you're 18. So through your 18 years in life, just growing up, if you could share how it's been knowing that you have a mother that has an illness that takes her away from you at times, and so how that's impacted you as a young man growing up.
Yeah, just when I was younger, I didn't really like really have that much impact on me because like I was young, so I didn't really like understand, and I always thought like it's like she just had bad heartburn or like um she just needs to go to the hospital for whatever reason. But as I got older, I started understanding more of why she had to go to the hospital, and it kind of also just made me stronger and develop a better relationship with my mom because made me stronger in a way because a lot of times I wouldn't be at my grandmother's house. I would be home by myself, and I would still have to go to school, and I would still have to do everything. And I would still have to like live my life basically, and instead of just dwelling on that moment, just praying and having faith that she was gonna be okay, and just having the strength to just go about my day and just continue to have faith in my mom that she'll be good and yeah it also is frustrating at times because of the fact that she has like sickle cell. It's like a lot of times people can't really identify how much pain people are in when they have that, and it's kind of annoying because when you see the nurses and the EMTs, like they don't really take it as serious, and they try to brush it off and make it seem like, oh, she's not really in pain, or like they like are rough with her, or like they're not as careful with her, or they just don't take as much time and effort um because she may not look like she is in that much pain. But yeah, that's also kind of frustrating for me because to see them like I know how much pain she is and then they don't, and yeah, but basically it also just helped me I guess get a better relationship with my mother because to realize how strong she is, how she has to go through that for basically her whole life, in and out the hospital and pain, stuff like that. So that's why I just try my best in school, try my best at home, and I just try to be the best son I could be. And yeah.
No, that's great, Elijah. But that's really, yeah. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Elijah, for sharing your perspective of growing up and having a mother that has sickle cell. But that's part of even what your mom said in terms of like the strength and how that's given her strength, knowing that she has you there depending on her, and that you help to motivate her to push through the pain and push through some of the issues that she may be dealing with. And so it's good to hear your perspective to see that her situation also provides you strength.
Yeah.
and also helps you to persevere and to be the man that you have grown to become today, heading into your first year of college at Clark Atlanta. So we're thankful that you were able to take the time to talk to us, even though, like we said, you're out at the beach enjoying the last moments of summer. So we really appreciate you. I don't know if your aunt wants to say anything before we let you go, but yeah, thank you, Elijah.
Go get some waves for me.
Of course, no problem. All right.
Some waves on the head or some waves on the beach? Which one?
Look, I know there's some waves under this wave cap we got on.
But yeah, no, we appreciate you, Elijah. Thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to connecting with you at another time. We may have to have you come on as your own little guest on this podcast sometime in the future. So, but yeah, thank you.
All right, of course, no problem.